I am delighted to welcome you all to Norton Manor. Those caryatids, which are the human creatures that are in robes, are 5.5 foot tall. You walk through the grand staircase, drawing room to one side and a dining room to the other side. Everywhere there is the hand of the artist. That was actually one of Frank's directives. He wanted every room to be a memory. So the name Norton Manor was really presented to us by Frank and Debbie, and they had named this property when I met them. And so this is, that is the name of the road, and I think it's a fabulous way of just making it the manor on the road. So when you arrive here, what's really fantastic is if you enter from the main road, you will come in and you cannot see the house. And then you go through sort of a slight woodlands and you make a turn, and all of a sudden the house comes into view. So Norton Manor is always a pleasure to come back to. And I spent 3.5 years with Frank and Debbie working on this property with them. And it was a marvelous journey to create this, we would refer to this as an American cottage, much like the way that we refer to Newport and all of those gorgeous mansions there as cottages. So, you know, this is very much a Gilded Age home. It is a story about their paths as well as the paths that they are now creating to really hopefully create a better world that we're going to live in. This house is very, very neoclassical, and I think people feel that spirit every time they come. As there are many places, I always love all these different magazines that tell you, oh, here's the most expensive zip code in the country and whatever. And Potomac is often listed within those zip codes, depending on who's doing the survey. I think it was 6.5 years in the making to do this project. And you know, it's pretty hard to build something this magnificent in less time than that, because you had to remove what was on the property. You had to work with where you were going to place this, how you were going to get your drainage. You know, there's all these practical considerations that can take a year to do. And then once you start working on something like this, to trim out a room like this and then have the artisans follow, you know, it's a lot of time. It's not like doing a drywall box. Welcome to Norton Manor. And one of the things as you enter the South Reception Hall that you would probably not notice because you're so busy looking at everything around you is that when you look up to the ceiling and you look at the floor, the design mirrors from the floor to the ceiling, other than one is plaster and gilt and the other is carpet. The rotunda, or the grand staircase. And this is the room that all the other rooms feed off of. And from here, if you were a guest at an event, we'd walk back this way. And depending on what kind of event you're here for and what time or season of the year it is, you would then be going outside to the terrace if the weather is great. You may want to sit down with your drink and talk to a few friends in the drawing room. And in this room, There are several different seating groups so that you and your friends can sit down and have a conversation while you're waiting for the event to begin or for the guest of honor to arrive. Turn around and go to the dining room from here. And when you look at the ceilings, you know, we have this great neoclassical design, which is largely French. You know, we have these rugs that were made to inset into the marble floors here. And we have some great antique candelabra that are on the table. So this room can close off, but honestly, you never really want it to close off because this room is so marvelous behind it. And this room has these beautiful hand-painted walls with a wonderful sky for a ceiling. And it's just like a breath of fresh air. Like I always feel I'm in springtime when I'm in this room. In the family room, it is opening out to the koi pond. And as we go from the family room, like every family room should be, you go into the kitchen. And this is this wonderful quasar chandelier that Barry Entner created for this room. This is Debbie's private office. And one thing I want to point out is that this looks like wallpaper. This is actually hand stenciled and then glazed over to look like this. There's no shortage of famous people who've been here. This room, which is the library, has a copy of the Resolute desk. And of course, this desk was created years ago. If you look at the bottom, you see that one of the presidents had it raised because it was too low for them. It originally was a partner's desk, so this new panel was added in years later, and it has a history of its own. But most people remember it as the desk that John F. Kennedy used when he was president, and of course, John came out the secret compartment at the bottom. So this is where the party starts. A great space to come into. I hope you noticed the great chandelier by Barry Entner. And as we walk back into here, this is where the major events occur. So right now, this room is set up for a dinner, and they're cleaning up from the last dinner that was here. All of the murals, we have the Jefferson, we have the White House, we have the US Capitol, we have the Institute for Peace. Even the marquetry details were inspired by the doors. As you look down this way, there's a bar and then a wine room. And this way is the French garden room. And this is what takes you outside. In this room, we have the walls faux marbleized, and we have a vintage Parisian tapestry there from the 20s. This is an overflow space, but when they're doing big events, they can sit 100 down here. And then this table actually rolls. This goes in the center of the big room. And if it didn't have these wonderful glass sculptures, I would demonstrate it for you. But there's actually wheels built underneath in that base so that it can roll around through these areas. This room we can show you any movie you'd like to see. but the sound quality in here is excellent. Also, sometimes Frank is giving lectures, or we have various speakers that come in here, and it is a wonderful Art Deco. This is very special. Very few people get to see what we're going to see next. So this is all of Frank's awards and some of his favorite people that he has supported in politics and favorite causes. So come on down the hallway. This is Frank's private conference room, and he greatly admires Lincoln and greatly admires Kennedy. This is a sitting room for him. And this is Frank's working office, as you can see, where he's dreaming up the next thing he wants to talk about. So all of the gardens were designed by Louis Aquitac, and Don Gwiz was the owner. And what I truly appreciate, because remember, you're seeing it more than 10 years later, is that Frank and Debbie wanted everything planted as large as it could be planted, so they didn't have to wait for everything to grow. And so they did a magnificent job of, from day one, when you came here, you felt like the house was much older. This house will age beautifully, and this house will be here for another century. And in that time, the landscaping, will always go through the phases of maturity that all landscaping does. There were trees on the property, and there was a lot of effort made to retain all of the old trees. Particularly when you go over to the woodland gardens, you can see, the large trees, and those are all existing. None of those were planted. Now, some things were implanted to even increase that, but there was a lot of thought given, because from the road, you really can't see this house. There used to be one little tiny area that you could see a certain section of this house from, and I'm not even sure you can do that anymore. One thing that I was very proud of is the Institute of Classical Architecture and Art gave an award to this house after we completed it. So this is a marvelous testament to the great taste of what the Islams created.